Episode 159 of Australia's #1 marketing show. We're talking services marketing, feedback from a Terry listener, how to get inbox relief, plus I chat to a telesales expert who loves using the phone to make money.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Australia's favourite marketing show. I am your host, Timbo Reid, but you, so much more importantly, are a motivated small business owner. You just want to grow your business, and you want to do it by implementing some very, very smart marketing, I'm guessing. That's why you're listening. We are brought to you on the topic of smart marketing by the very good folk at Net Registry. They are there to get your online marketing sorted. Domain name hosting. Yeah, you don't host domain names, you actually register them. So we'll say domain name registration, website hosting, website design and development, search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, all that stuff that you kind of know you need to do because you listen to this show, but it freaks you out. Don't let it freak you out anymore. Have others do it. And that's what Net Registry do. They get your online marketing sorted. So head over to netregistry.com.au, or even better, go to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and click on the Net Registry banner, because then they know that you are coming from me. Great stuff. Okay. Also, a big welcome to everyone in the Flying Solo community. Hey, big show today, team. Big show. Here's what we've got, right? You ready? Are you leaning back with a cuppa in hand? Maybe even a pen and paper? I've got a listener question from a clinical psychologist. So I'm going to have to be on my most academic behaviour. Clinical psychologist who is asking about the marketing of services. Going to give you a little bit of an insight into what's happening in the forum, because there's plenty. A little bit of an update on the live event that I mentioned in last week's episode. It's not a great update, but there is a silver lining to it. Also, feedback from a Terry listener, and then today's guest lifts the lid on cold calling and shows us how to make money using the phone. Gotta love that. Let's get stuck in. So today's listener question comes from Dr. Gemma. Dr. Gemma says, "Hi Timbo, I'm a regular listener of your show and love hearing discussion about a range of marketing concepts. You are in the right place, Doc. My boyfriend and I run two separate service-based businesses with no selling of products due to our industry. I am a clinical psychologist in Melbourne, offering high-end boutique assessment and treatment of mental health difficulties. It would be great to hear on your show more interviews and discussions from service-based businesses about service-based marketing rather than product marketing." Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I went back through my archive, Dr. Gemma, and it is interesting. I didn't realise that there was a bit of a skew towards product-based businesses. So I will absolutely be on the lookout for more service-based businesses who are cranking out some great marketing. Often we find ourselves, back to the letter, having a discussion about the application of any one of your podcasts to our business and struggle often to find the relevance in light of the high regulation of the marketing of health services in Victoria by the government, despite finding it very interesting nonetheless. Would really appreciate your thoughts. Yeah, the high regulation thing, that's a hard one to overcome because it really does restrict what you can and can't do. I get that. I've done a lot of work with the financial planning industry and it's the same thing there. So I get that. I would be surprised, I sort of am surprised though, that you are listening to the interviews and not coming up with ideas as a result of listening to product marketers anyway, but it could be the regulation thing, so that's a hard one to really know. There's some interviews of service providers that I have done. Dr. Gemma, that I reckon you should go back and have a listen to if you haven't already. Andrew Matner, the accountant from South Australia, he was just cranking out some great offline marketing. Charles Badenack, he was a financial advisor down in Tassie who was just nailing content marketing, which I strongly suggest you get into, Dr. Gemma. Tristan White, who had the physio company, he was just doing some wonderful stuff, particularly around employee brands. You may be a solopreneur, Doc, so that might not work for you, but nonetheless, doing some great marketing of a service. And Daniel Archow, who owns and started Service Central, an online portal in which he connects service providers with homeowners. So there are some good ones in there. There is some marketing gold, little nuggets in there. Now, let me give you some ideas for marketing of services. You know, marketing of service, it's all about bringing it to life. It's making the intangible tangible. That's what we've got to do as marketers of services. You know, I'm obviously a service provider, have been for many years. Podcasting has been by far and away the best marketing I've done for my business. So I would really consider, Dr. Gemma, thinking what you could do from a podcast perspective. Feel free to contact me if you want to talk about that. I have a website which is called getyourownShow.com.au, where I do help people get their own podcast. The other thing I do, Gemma, or is it doctor, is to write a book. Hey? You would have lots of wonderful case studies and insights that I think would really be of great value to your patients and to the big wide world of people who do suffer from a particular mental illness that you can help them with. So I think a book is a great credentializer too. It's a glorified business card. You would have heard me speak about that previously. You could potentially open up a forum, and I kind of like that. I'm guessing the regulations might stop you from doing that. I also like the idea for a service business like yours, Doc, to do video tutorials, which you could sell behind a paid wall. Okay, so you'd create a series of videos and you could then go ahead and it could be a course, they could be help videos, they could be how-to videos, all sorts of topics covered. That would be a kind of interesting thing to do. The other thing is to consider running webinars. And maybe what you could do is have a weekly or a monthly Q&A webinar where your patients and or prospects could dial in and ask questions anonymously. So, or you could interview people, a particular specialist around a particular area of mental health. So there's a few ideas for you, but I'd take your advice there, Doc, that I'm not interviewing enough service providers. So I will now have the radar on looking for service providers somewhere in the world that are cranking out great marketing. Thanks for your question, Doc. And if you want to send me a question, anyone else, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and click on the contacts page. You can send me a question immediately. So the big question is, are you a member of the Small Business Big Marketing Forum yet? Because if you're not, you're missing out. So here's the thing. I'm guessing you have got a marketing question, a pressing marketing question that you would like answered. Yeah, you can send them into the show and I might answer it, but I get a lot of marketing questions sent to me. The thing is, I'm in the forum every day answering your motivated marketing questions. That doesn't really make sense. You, the motivated business owners, marketing questions. And I do encourage you to get in there because I have just added a couple of exclusive fireside chats just for forum members in there. One I did only this morning, and it is all about email productivity with email productivity guru. And I do not use that word lightly. Let me tell you, Paul Higgins. Paul spent 18 years at Coca-Cola sorting them out. And he's come on and we spoke for about an hour about how to sort this pain that is email out. He is just a magician. He's got an 8-step process which he walks us through that will have you sorting out your email in no time. Really simple, really clear. And you know, like guys like Paul, They're so wonderfully anally retentive. I love it. They're everything that I'm not. And he really does lead us down this wonderful path to what I would call email nirvana. So that interview, it's actually a video. It's a recorded webinar that I did with Paul. You can watch that and or listen to it inside the forum. And there is another interview I uploaded recently, which is a discussion with a podcast producer, Ben Kruger. So Benny is out there producing other people's podcasts, and it was just a really good, intense discussion about all things podcast. You know, where's podcasting in its life cycle? Who's it for? Who isn't it for? We talk about a simple but effective method for shaping your podcast, getting the structure right, how to find your podcast uniqueness, the various structures, planning how the podcast fits into your marketing strategy, how to promote it, all those things that, you know, if you have ever thought one day, you go, oh, gee, I wouldn't mind getting my own show, then you can do it, because Ben and I talk about how to go about it inside the forum. And again, that's about a 50-minute, 60-minute audio interview that you can get your teeth stuck into. So you see, the forum's got a whole lot of places, including, we call it the water cooler, where you can ask your marketing questions, but it's also got a classroom, and that kind of stuff lives inside the classroom. And I will continue to add marketing training in the forum for as long as I feel as though you need it. And that's probably like forever, because we should never stop learning. That's my view. As small business owners, we just got to keep on feeding the grey matter. Oh, by the way, it would be remiss of me not to say that if you wanted to join the forum, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and click on the forum button. You will be in there before you can say, geez, why wasn't I in here earlier? Now, the live event that I talked about in last week's episode, the Content Marketing Accelerator Program, is not going to happen. Well, not this year anyway. What I've found from feedback from listeners is that just too close to Chrissy, Timbo. It's just too close to the festive season. I'll be drinking wine and beer and eating canopies. So, we're going to put a hold on that. But I am considering running maybe a little webinar, something or other, before the year's out, because there is a lot of questions coming in around how to embark on a content marketing strategy. And I really do want you guys to launch into 2014 with a refreshed approach to your marketing. So, I will put a webinar of some sort together. And if you are registered at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, you are going to be the first to know about that webinar, and it will be focused around a kind of a light version of what I would have covered in the full day, but you will walk away from it knowing how to embark on a content marketing strategy ready for a really, really big 2014. So I love getting feedback, and I hope you love hearing the feedback, what other small business owners just like you are thinking and doing in regards to not only this show, but their own businesses and their own marketing of their business. So I've got a couple of wonderful pieces of feedback received recently, both in regards to the interview that I did with David Warren from Sydney Tall Ships on episode 157. Probably it's the episode where I've had the most kind of heartfelt feedback, a very motivational discussion, I must say, a very inspiring discussion with David. Let me share a couple of the bits of feedback that came through. One is from Mary Gardam. Mary says, "Hi, Timbo. I just wanted to say that I love your show. I have been a devoted listener since I discovered it in January." Where have you been, Mary? Are there any more funny business episodes coming up? Damn right there are, Mary. I just got to pin down that AG fellow. He's slippery. He's slippery. That's his problem. But I'll get him. He's been busy. Although, I'm back to the letter. Although I've wanted to email you previously, it has taken your chat with David Warren to swing me into action for a number of reasons. I'm always amazed. So many people hit me up and say, gosh, I've been meaning to contact you, been meaning to do this, been meaning to join the forum, but something holds us back. I think it's lack of time, but you'd be surprised. Some things don't take as much time as you think. Back to Mary's letter. As a systems specialist, it was great hearing David speak so passionately about systems and how they have contributed to the success of his roast and tall ship businesses. It isn't an area a lot of people tend to get too excited about. It was very refreshing. Yeah, I must say that's true, but what I do know is that you, the listeners, love the system stuff, the how-to stuff, how to get your hands dirty under the hood and get stuff done. That's why the Paul Higgins email management interview in the forum, oh gee, if you like getting stuff done, I would be listening to that puppy real quick. Back to Mary's letter. Although my husband and I, have been in business since the start of the year, it is taking some time for us to get traction, and it was comforting to hear David's story, warts and all. I love his attitude. Yeah, so do I, Mary. For David, Aunt Grandmother's amazing. I had a wonderful grandmother who, like his, supported me when others wouldn't. What I wouldn't give for her to be still here. I don't think I would have become the same person without her. Oh, now I'm crying, says Mary. Thanks, Timbo. Love your work. Thank you, Mary. And here is another bit of feedback from listener Zoran. I love this one. This is, again, touching and just shows, we're not alone. We're all out there having a go, and sometimes it's not easy, but it pays off in the end. Have a listen to what Zoran's got to say. G'day, Timbo. I don't have a lot of spare time in the day. In fact, being a one-man show running a Melbourne-based personal training business, I hardly find it whatsoever. So much so that I feel that I am jeopardizing quality family time in pursuit of my dream, a successful small business. Such a juggle. I don't know. We've just got to be more efficient with our time. I know that's easy to say, but that's the reality. And we've got to learn to say no. That's kind of what I'm learning as well. Back to Zoran. Having listened to just about every show, geez, no wonder you've got no time with your family. That's 160 odd shows, Zoran. Well done, thank you. Including the early ones with Lukey. This short letter is my way of saying thank you. Although every show has taught me and motivated me throughout, there have been some standouts, with the one in particular on a particular emotional level with your guest, David Warren of Sydney Tall Ships. I have many more steps to make in terms of David's entrepreneurial successes, but after just having listened to his interview, I couldn't help but relate, check this out guys, and emotionally connect with the downsides he has had in a huge way. I have done the lot, not paid rent, slept in a car, got married, just had our first kid, and with piggy bank money once buying a loaf of bread and litre of milk. Man, I find that stuff touching. That's why I love small business owners so much. Back to Zoran. You would be pleased to know, Tim, that I now run a business that grosses a good return and is only getting stronger by the day. Good formula equals put on a show and not just a training session. Yeah, Zoran, I love that. Absolutely. Add some theatre. Add some experience to what it is you do. That's what David does with his Sydney Tall Ships experience, and clearly Zoran's puts on a bit of a show as well. Good on you, mate. Thanks. Thank you for your ever inspiring stuff, Timbo. Your man, Zoran, personal training manager from my fitness team. He hasn't got an email address, otherwise I would have, a website address, otherwise I would have pumped his tyres and given him a bit of promotion that way. Hey, Zoran and Mary, thank you so much for that beautiful feedback. Love to know what you're getting from the show, and I hope that's useful to everyone else listening in. Keep it coming. Head over to iTunes. You can leave some feedback there, or you can send me an email at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Okay, no more jibber jabber. Let's get in to today's guest. It is all about cold calling. It is all about telemarketing. It is all about making money through the phone, by the phone. And it is a lady by the name of Jenny Cartwright. Now, let me tell you how this one came about. In episode 157, I answered a listener question from Adam Johnson about cold calling and gave him some ways of getting through the Dobermans and getting to the right people and making cold calling work for him. But I don't put myself out there as a cold calling expert, so I suggested we needed to find one. So, who else but David Warren emailed me because he heard me answer that question, and he said, hey, Timbo, I recommend you talk to Jenny Cartwright. She is by far the best in the business as far as I am concerned. I have learned a lot from her, as have my team. So I find out who this Jenny Cartwright lady is, and she is on the money. Jenny, she's the author. Well, she's telesales kind of cold calling expert, extraordinaire. She's written the book Don't Get Hung Up: How to Sell Products and Services by Phone. She's written the ebook Top Telesales Techniques That Work, as well as she co-wrote Secrets of Top Sales Professionals. But at a practical level, Jenny has achieved record-breaking results in telemarketing by promoting some of these speakers like Tom Hopkins, Anthony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, and Jay Abraham. There's some big names right there. So Jenny Cartwright clearly knows what she's doing, and it was a very, very interesting chat about what I guess we would consider some old school marketing. So what I did is I went into the forum, the Small Business Big Marketing Forum, and I asked members, what cold calling questions have you got for a cold calling expert like Jenny? So I got a whole lot of questions. I got about 15 all up, and those questions led the way for this fireside chat with telesales/cold calling expert Jenny Cartwright. Jenny Cartwright from telesalestraining.com.au. Welcome to Small Business Big Marketing.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to all my colleagues who are small business people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and many full of fear when it comes to that double-edged sword called cold calling. Now, you are a strong believer that you can make money from the phone, aren't you?
I certainly am a strong believer in that, and I've been doing it for 20 years.
Wow.
Not only teaching it, but I still do it myself because I find it so powerful. And actually, nowadays, people who don't do it don't have the edge. People who do it have the edge because
what do you mean the edge? What's the edge?
Well,
I thought he was a guitarist with you too.
Well, you have an edge over people who don't phone, because when you actually phone someone, you make a personal relationship. And isn't marketing these days about building relationships? Yeah.
Well, it always has been. Marketing's what you do when you can't go and see someone, is what I was once told.
It always amuses me when I heard a speaker last week talking about LinkedIn. So if you're selling to corporates, you must have a profile on LinkedIn. And he said, the reason I put my profile on LinkedIn is so I don't have to call people. And I'm like looking at him a little bit strangely thinking, wow, imagine if you called people that you had a connection with and build a relationship with them. How much more powerful would that be?
Well, it's kind of interesting because we obviously the world is heading online, and if you look at the generations that come before that are going before us or coming past us, I don't know, my kids, for example.
Yes.
I mean, the phone is an alien thing, and we talk a lot on this show and in the marketing world about all the things that are happening online, and it's almost as if telesales and cold calling is now where it's a little bit quieter than it used to be.
Well, cold calling is still done by people overseas, very, very badly. Mm-hmm. And the people who cold call here, there aren't many people who have the courage to do it. But I can assure you that if you do it, you get more leads. And it's a very good way to get leads because you target the people that you want to call. I'll give you an example. If people are advertising for, say in my business, they're advertising for telesales people or telemarketers, I would look in the paper or in a newspaper online to see who's advertising for telesales people or salespeople, and I would ring all that would be my lead generation. I would call all those people to find out how many telemarketers, how many telesales people they had, how many salespeople they had. And then by doing that, I would find out whether, what kind of training they're currently doing and whether they needed any training and what they were struggling with in particular. And that would arm me with some information to go into the managing director with to get him to buy my services. So, for example, I would go to a managing director and say, hello, Joe, this is Jenny Cartwright from Sales and Telesales Solutions. I understand you have 10 salespeople there. Is that correct? And I've already done my homework. I found out because I'd made that cold call and to a target market, because these people are advertising for telesales people. So, or salespeople. And so I'm going to my target market, and then I'm going in armed with some information and asking a question which is only going to get yes from a decision maker when I go into the call. So cold calling is very targeted. It's very personal. It's very direct. It doesn't
needs a better name.
It doesn't it? Yeah. Well, I actually don't teach cold calling. I teach warm calling, because that call that I just gave an example of is a warm call, because I did my homework and I found out from the receptionist when I cold called a target market a little bit about the company, how many salespeople, how many telesales, how many telemarketers, how many lead generators. I found all that out first.
Now, Jen, as you know, I went out to the Small Business Big Marketing Forum members and said I will be speaking to a telesales / cold calling expert, and they hit me up with a whole lot of questions that I have got for you, and it's almost going to have to be a mad minute because there's quite a few here and the show only goes for a certain amount of time. So I reckon we get stuck into it, hey?
Okay, you just asked me a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to start with one from Justin, and Justin is one of our forum members. He says, why would people cold call? You kind of touched on that, but do you want to expand?
Well, only because it's direct, it's personal, and if you do a cold call, you create more leads and you can find your real target market. That's why you do it. And make it a personal connection.
So should lead generation be a primary outcome from cold calling? Is that because obviously there's plenty of things you could do. You could go lead generation, appointment setting, registering, buying. You know, what are the different? What should you be aiming for when you cold call?
You should be aiming for a target market. So industries that would want to buy your services, somebody who would be using your services already or could be. So don't go.
What outcome should you be aiming for?
You should be aiming for someone to interest someone in either having an appointment with you or looking at your products and services, or sending them a quote for your products and services so they can compare you with other people to get their business. And so really looking for new business, but only in the area that is likely to buy. A lot of people just get a list and call it, like they might say, calling medium-sized businesses. Well, think about calling medium-sized businesses that would have a need for your services, not just any medium-sized business. Mm-hmm. And so if you really target it and think about who you're calling, is this person likely to want to buy?
Now, these questions are not exactly in order of like a process from, prior to a call to the call to follow up. So let's just go with it. But I love this one. How do you get past the Dobermans?
Oh, Dobermans. You mean the gatekeepers?
Well, you could call them gatekeepers. I call them Dobermans.
Oh, yes. Well, it's very easy because when you go in, first of all, you befriend the Doberman. You say the name is Sue. Oh, Sue, I wonder if you could help me. I'm looking for the person in charge of HR, or I'm looking for the person in charge of IT, because it's very important that you get the name of the person before you go into talking to that decision maker. I mean, if you don't have that name, then the person could pick up the phone and you don't even know who you're talking to. So you've already out of rapport straight away because you can't use their name in the conversation. So you might have to make 2 calls. So you go and get some information from the receptionist, like who's the person to call? Because if you say, could I speak to the managing director, or could I speak to the manager of IT? They're not going to put you through because they'll know immediately this is a sales call. So what you want to do is get that information first. Who would be the person to speak to? You could try after that and say very assertively, could you put me through to him now, please? Thank you. You say thank you after please. It throws them a bit. And you do it standing up so you've got confidence in your voice. They might say, no, he doesn't take sales calls. So then you throw it back on to the receptionist. Well, it's very important that I speak to him. I'm wondering how you would suggest I reach him. So
put it back on them.
Put it back on them.
Yeah.
And then, or you can say, well, he'd be very disappointed if he didn't hear about the event that we have coming up because he's always attended in the past, or something like that.
What if he hasn't though? Like there's an element of all this that I don't know. Maybe it's just me. There's a bit of a cringe factor there. If he has attended an event in the past, well, then absolutely, you can use that. If he hasn't, and you say, "Oh, he'll be disappointed if he misses out," that just feels a bit. Oh, yeah, really?
Okay, well, you could say, "I'm wanting to write him a letter, but I need to know something. I need to ask him something personal first."
Mm-hmm.
Or you could, if you can't get through the gatekeeper, you could ring before 9 and after 5. Sometimes you get people direct.
Yeah.
Alternatively, think of a department in a company that might not be good at gatekeeping. I always go to the sales department because they'll always put you through to sales. So you say, "Could I speak to sales, please?" So you get straight through, and then, Joe Richards answers the phone, and you ask for Joe Bloggs, and he says, "Oh, you've come through the wrong number. I'll put you through."
Nice. Hey, she's in the building now.
So it's also quite powerful if you can get a referral to someone in the company who can help you. I've often gone that way.
Yeah, that's nice. As I was saying before, that whole cringeworthy thing, and obviously there's a number of reasons why small business owners don't cold call. It's cringeworthy. They don't want the rejection. There's fear of rejection, all that type of stuff. But
that's a mindset thing.
Yeah, it is. Well, let's talk about that. How do you overcome, in order to even consider cold calling as a marketing strategy, how do you quickly overcome the "no, I'm going to get rejected" kind of thoughts?
Okay, do you want to remain poor? You've got to ask yourself.
Nice.
So, when you actually follow up, I can't tell you how important the follow-up is. If you send something out in the mail and you don't follow it up, you lose 25% of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, I'll give you an example. Last year, I called, at the beginning of this year, I called all the people that I'd done quotes for training who had not come good.
Mm-hmm.
I converted 25% of them into business this year.
Nice.
Because when you follow up, it actually shows that you care. If you don't follow up, if you come from the mindset, "Look, I care whether this person does business with me or not. I really want them to do business with me." And so if you don't follow up, it shows that you couldn't care less whether they did business with you. You're just blasting out an email, or you're blasting out a letter to introduce them to your services. You can't get any emotion into writing unless you're a very good sales copywriter, and most people aren't. And I'm so over getting all this online stuff, emails. An email comes into my inbox every 5 seconds at the moment. It's ridiculous. People selling me stuff, and I just go delete. And I actually had a woman, can you believe this? I had a woman from India ring me about 2 weeks ago, and it was very hard to understand her accent anyway. But she has been so persistent. But in a very nice way.
You should employ her.
I know. Oh, no, because I can't with an accent like that.
Right.
But the very fact that she followed up and actually talked sense to me and knowledgeably about my website and how they wanted to do my SEO. And I'm like, well, okay, so I actually bit the bullet and signed up with her yesterday. And she really knew what she was talking about. And because she did, I had confidence in her, and the fact that she didn't give up after calling me 3 times. She just kept going.
Well, I'll be interested to hear how that goes. Now, let's move on. There's lots of questions here. Justin's got another one. He says, what are some great opening lines?
Okay, well, the opening line really needs to be a major benefit of what you offer. So you wouldn't start off with, something like, "Hi, I'm Simon from XYZ Services. We're an information technology firm. The reason I called you today is to tell you about our program." Well, that's how most people call, because I'm not in the slightest bit interested in your program. You haven't given me any reason why I should be in that opening sentence. So, or a recruitment company says, "Hi, this is Susan from XYZ Recruitment. I'd like to introduce you to our services." Well, sorry, I'm busy. I'm in the middle of doing something. Goodbye. So we don't want to receive calls like that. So we don't want to make them like that. So I'll give you an example. If you were to create like if you were to write down 5 benefits of what you offer,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put, in front of that benefit, you put, I have a way or an idea that could help you to something or other. I'll give you an example. We offer investors like yourself an opportunity to borrow money at a much lower rate than you may be paying now. So the benefit is you enable people to borrow money at a much lower rate. And then another one, we show you how to save money on all your information technology product purchases.
Right, so you're leading with a benefit and being you're cutting to the chase. It's effectively the headline. It's like write the headline for the ad. The headline for the ad's the introductory line for the call, and it's got to be benefit driven.
That's exactly right.
Love it.
What you want them, what you want the person to be thinking in their head is, well, how do you do that? But you don't tell them then, because now it's your turn to ask questions, because you need to listen to their answers. And then you need to draw out of them what they need before you start dumping over them what you've got. Because nobody wants to have yada, 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 do you want to buy? We want them to be, the customer to be talking about what they need. So straight after your opening benefit line, you need to not draw breath. You go straight into, but first of all, may I ask you? And then you go into a couple of questions. And the questions should be around the benefits that you have. So if I give you an example of someone wants to sell you a barbecue, and the benefits are it's easy to clean, you can move it around the garden and it doesn't rust. So you would ask a question like, how easy is it to move your barbecue around the garden at the moment in and out of the sun? Oh, you can't. Oh, right. Okay. So you must fry when you're in the sun. And how easy is it to clean your barbecue at the moment? Oh, it's a pain in the neck. So what you're saying is that you can't move the barbecue around the garden. So then you introduce listening skills, right? So what you're saying is you can't move that barbecue you have around the garden in and out of the sun, and it's a pain in the neck to clean. Is that correct? So you get a yes question.
Yep.
And then it's your turn to introduce something that you can move around the garden and doesn't, and it's easy to clean. So you do your benefit opening, and then you say, but first of all, may I ask you? So that's showing respect that you're finding out whether they would even have a need for this. And you ask a question around a benefit that you have, because that creates pain with them, and people buy to avoid pain or gain pleasure.
Yeah, okay.
So you ask your questions, no more than 3 questions, otherwise it sounds like an interrogation.
Yeah.
1 question is fine, 1 to 3, and don't say anything in between questions. Ask all your questions up front, then repeat back what they said, and then go into your sales presentation.
Nice. Righto. Well, now part of that presentation, from what I understand, there are some words that are call killers. Jen, what are those call killer? What words should we avoid when we're on a cold call?
Oh, I've got a great deal for you.
Yeah. That's all. Yeah. Shiny gold tooth.
Do you have time to talk now? I mean, what a stupid question to ask at the beginning of a conversation, because we only ever want, in a telemarketing call, we only ever want open-ended questions, which can not get a yes or no answer. So we need that's what, why, where, when, how, which, who. Open-ended questions only throughout the whole call, until you're ready to say, would you like to go ahead then? So you have to be a master of open-ended questions for everything.
There's a lot to remember, like it's interesting. I'm kind of, during this conversation, I'm thinking about a conversation I had with a guest a number of months ago, and we were talking about presenting from stage, and there's kind of 2 schools of thought with presenting from stage, and, presenting on the phone's not so different. One school of thought says that and Toastmasters, right? I haven't done Toastmasters, but they say, do this, do that, don't have your hand in your pocket, don't lean on the lectern, don't do this, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, if you actually had to remember all that and went on stage thinking, okay, the first thing I've got to do is don't lean on the lectern. Oh, I leaned on the lectern. You're going to deliver a very poor keynote, right?
Absolutely.
The alternative of Toastmasters is be yourself. Talk from the heart, be yourself. Know your stuff, but be yourself. And as I hear you talk about all this, and we're not even halfway through these questions, it's like, you know what? Wow. If you're going to get telesales right, there's a lot you've got to remember. You can't ask closed questions. You've got to ask open-ended questions. Mm-hmm. You can't ask more than 3 questions. You've got to do this. It's like, you know, it's fraught with danger. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Absolutely not. Another question, for goodness sake, don't say on a cold call, how are you today? Oh, yeah. I hate that one. I'm like on the back foot, pedaling out as soon as someone starts with that, because it's like they're not confident to talk about what they have. So they've got to stall with how are you? And why should I be interested in telling someone I don't know how I am?
But do you know what I was saying just earlier there, Jen, is that, you know, do you really, like, part of me just thinks, gosh, you know, can't we just be ourselves, cold call someone and kind of like just breeze our way through it by being ourselves versus trying to remember all these things?
Well, you have to be yourself, because what basically telephone sales is about having a conversation. Now, that depends whether you are a good communicator with your friends and family and business people as well, because it's about having a conversation, but it's no different from having a conversation with a friend but communicating correctly. So it is, I mean, I would say telesales skills are life skills, because this is how you should be communicating to everybody, not just on a cold call, because you should be interested in other people and not just telling other people about yourself, because you're very boring to other people. You should be finding out about other people when you're communicating, because people love to talk about themselves, and when someone invites them to do that, then, you know, that it builds rapport with the person. Listening skills are far more important than talking, and that's why we only do the benefit statement and then start with questions so the other person can talk.
I love that saying, act like an elephant. Big ears for listening, a little mouth for talking.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, let's get back to these questions from the forum members. Now, what do we got here? Justin's got one about outsourcing. I'm going to come back to that. That might be a nice place to finish. Arne has one that asks, what's a successful conversion rate? Now, I think we know that from a direct marketing point of view, a 1% to 2% conversion rate is considered a success, which I always think is funny, because that means 98% of your direct marketing was unsuccessful. What kind of conversion rate can we expect from telesales, from cold calling, Jen?
From cold calling, 10%.
Nice.
From doing follow-up calls to people that you sent something to, and you actually follow up, showing you care that they do business with you, I can do 25%. So probably average should be about 17%.
Nice. They're much nicer numbers. There's still a big gap though, isn't there? There's still, you know, on 25%, there's still 75% unsuccess. Mm-hmm. But, you know, obviously there's reasons for that, like people weren't available, or, you know, it was the wrong time, or whatever it may be. But
Tim, it was really, I mean, I would say that it's triply hard to do telephone sales now, harder than it was 10 years ago. I mean, when I first started this business, it was a dream. It really was. I mean, I never advertised, only did cold calling and warm calling, and I've made a whole business out of that. It's really the only way I know how to market, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why is it got harder? Because it's got busier.
Because people have got their voicemail on, and the gatekeepers are getting better, and no one wants sales calls. But what I suggest people do now is don't get disheartened, because it's still worth doing. Because it differentiates you from the people who don't do it. You definitely get business. I have to do it myself when I'm short of people on my seminars, which I do around the country. And last week I spent 2 hours, and I didn't get anybody for my public workshop. However, I got 2 in-house trainings in 2 hours, and each one of those was worth $4,000. So that tell me that it's not worth doing.
Exactly right.
Now, to be fair, the next day I did it for the whole day. and I didn't get anything. So,
gee, that'd be disheartening. How do you kind of pick yourself up from that?
well, when I say I didn't get anything, I did get people who couldn't come on that public workshop, and they want me to put them down to be called for the next one. So you get, actually, when you do it, you get future business as well. So lined up. So it won't be nearly so hard to promote my February workshop, because I've already got a list of 10 people who have said that they would like to come, or send someone from the company.
That's nice. I have to laugh. You're talking earlier about the, stand up. It gives you power when you're doing your calling, stand up. And a previous guest of a few weeks ago, Brad Smith from motorcycle brand Brap, they do a lot of cold calling, and he talks about how his team members dress up in fancy dress. He's got one guy that wears a mullet wig and Ray-Ban sunglasses whenever it's cold calling time, because it puts a smile on his face and puts him in a good space.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
That one's free. So now let's get stuck back into Arn, because he's got lots of questions. Arn asks, does doing intense research on the target dramatically increase your chances of success, or is it time wasting because the results are similar? You've kind of touched on the fact that you want to get to the gatekeeper, the Doberman, and ask a couple of personal questions about the person you're trying to get to. But intense research. I know Arn is a forum member. He's a deep thinker, and he's very considered.
Yeah. Well, when I go to train companies and do in-house training, I notice that a lot of people spend a lot of time doing researching before they pick up the phone. That is just a staller. Just get on with the call.
Get on with it.
Get on with it. But I mean, you can say to the person, start your call like, I noticed something on your website, or I saw in the paper that you're moving to another state, or you're opening up in another state. You can find something out about that company just quickly. And then it warms the call up. That's how you make it a warm call. But it could be an article you've seen that you can refer to. It can be an advert you saw. It could be a referral that you got, that someone suggested, they rang you. You could even dob the receptionist in and say, Joe on reception suggested you be the person to talk to about this idea I have for you.
It's amazing. You tripped my memory. I gave a keynote this morning in town, and one of the things I always make a point of before I speak, to no matter how big the group is, to sort of get around and speak to the people who are going to be in the audience. And I did that this morning, and I just happened to ask them, what's the most pressing marketing question you've got on your mind? And it started a wonderful conversation, which allowed me to refer to not both immediately from the moment I got up on stage, and to refer to it throughout the course of my keynote. And I find that really useful. So I didn't do a whole lot of intense research about my audience, but when I got there, I asked a couple of simple questions, the big question being, what's the most pressing marketing question you've got? And it fills the gaps very quickly.
What was the question they came up with?
My talk was an online talk, so it was how to get to the top of Google, and how do I reduce my marketing budget whilst increasing its impact, getting a better return on their budget. So, but there's always lots of them. That's why you listen to this show. Hey, listeners, I am talking to Jenny Cartwright, who is a telesales training and cold calling expert, and I've got a whole lot of questions that I have been given from forum members to ask Jen, and we are making our way slowly but surely through them. Now, Mark asks, when should you not cold call?
When should you not cold call? Like, you mean the times of day?
Well, he doesn't put any context to that, but maybe are there situations where, there's better ways of marketing your business than picking up the phone? I reckon, as a cold calling expert, you're going to say, no, there's not.
Are there better ways than cold calling? Well, you can always if you can't reach someone, you can send a postcard and say, I tried to reach you by phone. I wanted to call you and have a conversation because I'd really like to make an appointment and then a benefit of that appointment. So instead of cold calling, you could actually send a postcard to someone and that you can do if you don't get through as well. But when you mustn't cold call, you can't cold call before 9 o'clock in the morning and after 8 o'clock in the evening. and you're not allowed to call on Sundays, and you're not allowed to call on Saturdays after 1 o'clock. So
yeah, right. That's in Australia, is it?
That's worldwide. So but charities are exempt from that, and governments are exempt from that. So we still get the calls from overseas, like India, because they can get away with it, even if you are on the do not call register. But I would never put myself on a do not call register, because one of the ways I get business is by having these shocking telemarketers ring me, and I say to them, look, I could help you get more sales.
Love it.
And I tell them about my services.
Next question from Mark, Jen, is how do you deal with, and you kind of touched on this, but I would like to go a bit deeper. How do you deal with, okay, send us an email, or okay, thanks, just send us some info in the mail, and other obvious fob-offs?
So again, you come back with that's what I call an objection, which you'd always answer with an open-ended question. So let's say, so what's specifically, from what I've told you so far, would you be interested in me sending you? So that really clarifies whether they're just fobbing you off, or whether they want information. Then you can say, well, that way I can send you exactly what you want, and I can follow up in a couple of days to see what interested you. So you always need to say that if someone fobs you off with send an email, say, well, could I please have his direct email, because I will need to follow up in a couple of days to get his answer on this. So in other words, to the receptionist, expect my call in a couple of days, and you're going to have to put me through, because this is going to need an answer. And so whenever you send something out, you always say at the end of your letter or promotional material, I'll give you a call in a couple of days to see what you thought of this, or how you'd like to take this further. So the person who you send it to knows you're going to ring back, and it makes them read it. You must put that on any letter. So you tell the receptionist that, well, once he receives my email, we will need to discuss it. So I'll be calling him back in a couple of days. And that makes her pass it on to, he or she pass it on to whoever it is. Because so often they fob you off, and often you can look up people's websites, and you'll see that what the combination of the email is. So you could send an email to info at whatever they give you, or inquiries at, but you could also, first of all, try Sam at, or Sam B, or whatever. When you see the configuration of everyone's emails.
Oh, you're sneaky. You are sneaky.
So try that, and if it doesn't bounce back, you got it.
Yeah, like that. Now tell me, Michelle's asking about closing techniques. So let's talk about that, because, we've done all this wonderful work. We've decided as a small business, we are going to introduce cold calling as a marketing strategy. We have got we know who we've got to talk to. We know how to get through the Doberman. We know that we've got to ask a benefit-driven question up front. We know that we've got to be short, no more than 3 questions, and we've done it all. We've nailed it. But there's a point, as the speeds of sweat drop off the telesales person, that they're going to have to close this call at a point in time. So what are your top 3 closing techniques, Jen?
Okay. Well, when you've done your sales presentation, after your questioning and listening skills, you do the presentation. Now, here's the mistake that everyone who's not trained makes. They go into, so they could do the sales presentation. So shall we go ahead then, or would you like to sign here, or would you like to would you like me to send you the information so you can sign it and send it back to me, or something like that? Straight away, way too early to ask that question. When you've done that sales presentation, you need to test the ground with a trial close, like, so what do you think about that so far? Or how do you feel about that? Or how do you see yourself using this in your business? Or depending on, another thing is whether they're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. You use the different words: see, feel, think.
Yep.
How does that sound so far? no good saying, how does that sound so far, to someone who's been talking visual language all through their conversation, seeing language, because if you say, how does that sound, you'll be suddenly out of rapport. You need to say, if they're a visual person and they've been using words, seeing, this is another thing to listen for, seeing words, watch, show me, or things like that, then you need to say, how do you see yourself using this in your business? Not how does that sound so far?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, that's very complicated. But trial closes are important to test the ground, because that brings out the objections then.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they bring the objections out and you have a way to close them, you must make a list, by the way, of all the objections you get, because you're going to get the same ones every day. You might as well have a way to answer them. And guess what? You answer open-ended. You answer objections with open-ended questions, and you keep going. And then when you finally you've overcome their objections, you might say, what else is a concern to you? Oh, nothing. That's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's take it to the next step.
Here we go. Get the pen out.
That's right. So what I'll do is I'll send you the information which you need to sign, and I'll just take your credit card now for that. And
Lovely.
So you haven't closed too early. That's what they do. That's what I don't like the name telemarketer, because nobody in small business is a telemarketer. You are a salesperson who uses effective techniques on the phone.
If you are to outsource, and I want to just finish up just talking about outsourcing and choosing people to do your telemarketing, your cold calling, your selling by phone, whatever you want to call it. The things that we've learnt on this call make me think that you need quite a mature person to be able to carry a conversation like you're suggesting, and to lead people down a path towards an inquiry or a sale or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of person or personality makes for a great I'm going to use the word tele salesperson, but you know what I mean.
You've got to have tremendous energy, because it's the energy in your voice that people buy. You've got to have a positive attitude is so important, because we might have to make 50 calls before someone says yes. Now, I know that sounds a lot, but I mean, if you sell quite a high value product, then it's worthwhile making 50 calls. And you got to know your batting average. How many calls do you make before someone shows interest? And as I say, it's going to be 10% of the calls that you make that are going to succeed. So you've got to be prepared to get 90 no's before you get 10 yeses. If you're cold calling, if you're calling existing customers for more business, then that's much easier, because they already know you. And it's a lot. You're going to get a higher success rate.
So it's about energy. Back to that, like
yes.
The ideal person. It's about energy. It's not about necessarily male or female, age, qualifications. It's about finding people who have a bit of a chutzpah.
That's right, because people only hear the energy in your voice. They don't hear actually what you say. It's your tone. Tone is 75% importance, and words are only 25%.
Nice. Well, in terms of then outsourcing, Jen, and this is a question from Justin, how do you outsource? Would you outsource? So obviously,
no.
No. That was a no from Jen.
No. You need to have your own person doing it in-house, doing telesales, because someone doing telesales for you on your behalf, they need motivation, and they need to be part of the company. They need to know that they are part of a company, and it's very hard to work on your own doing telesales. You need a bit of someone to pep you up occasionally when you get that down feeling, and because you could have a whole day like me, you're getting nowhere, and then you have a day which is very fruitful. That's the way it works. And
does that person? Okay, so if we're talking, let's say we're talking about the local vet. And the local vet's gone, okay, I've listened to this conversation. I'm going to employ someone to do telesales for us. Should that person sit in at the clinic, or can they be doing it from home or anywhere they choose to? as long as they are part of that vet's team and not outsourced as part of someone else's team. Is that right?
Yes, they can if they're very self-motivated. And I would suggest that you only gave them a few hours a day to do it, because then your expectation is they will have made this number of calls, and they will have a report from that about what the reaction was and all that kind of thing. So a vet would probably be following up. Gosh, that would be a very rare vet that did that. They're following up on clients who brought their pets in and for being fixed, and then they just want to find out how the pet is. That would be that would be awesome customer service.
Would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, wouldn't that be good?
It would be good. Well, sometimes interesting. I mean, industries or business types that you would never consider doing cold calling, maybe they should consider doing cold calling, because they'll kind of set them apart. It'll be their point of difference.
Yeah, but a vet will be calling their own customers, so that will be warm calling, but that would be very beneficial, because people would then talk about them and say, "Gosh, I got a follow-up call from my vet."
Yeah, but it might not just be warm calling. It could be a vet identifying people within their community that are pet owners and suggesting that they come along to their clinic versus other clinics.
Oh, well, that's certainly they could do cold calling for that. Yes, absolutely. With a major benefit of coming to them. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, I reckon we've covered a lot of ground. There's been a whole lot of different questions about cold calling, pre, during, post calling. So thanks so much for sharing your knowledge. I think it's absolute gold. It's something we haven't covered on the show before. And I look forward to listeners leaving some comments in the show notes to this episode as to whether they have tried it, what kind of success they have, or if they haven't, why they haven't tried it. So thanks a lot, Jen.
My pleasure, Tim, and thanks for listening, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed that, listeners, as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Lots of gold there. It was one of those kind of how-to interviews, wasn't it? Lots of good rational discussion on how to crank out some great marketing. I got 5 key learnings from it. You probably got more because you were sitting there taking notes, I hope. Here they are. Number 1, just try cold calling. Add it to your marketing arsenal. We talk a lot about online marketing initiatives here. We've spoken about some offline stuff. We'll add that one to the arsenal. So give it a go. Number 2, stand up when making your calls. It gives you power. Do you know what? I'll give you a little secret. I stand up when I do my podcast. I have got one of those desks that go up and down. It's got a little motor in it, and I always stand up to do my podcast. I don't know. I guess it does. I wouldn't say it gives me power. It gives me energy. So I like that one. Number 3 tip, having heard Jen speak, is speak in benefits. I mean, that's just like marketing 101, copywriting 101. People don't care about the features until after they've bought. They want to know what you're going to do for them, how it's going to improve their lives. Number 4, have your own person in-house doing your telesales. That's interesting. I would have thought that outsourcing it to a telesales company may have been the way to go, but I can absolutely see the benefits of bringing it in-house. And number 5, overcome the fear factor. How to overcome the fear factor? By asking yourself, what will the financial impact be if I don't do the cold calling? And clearly Jen's pretty bullish about the fact that it can generate some seriously good income for your business if you do kind of lean into the whole cold calling thing. I don't think it's not one of those marketing tactics that you can kind of go, I'll just put my toe in the water and see what it's like. It might be cold, I might not do it. I think you really got to go for it because it will come through in your voice if you're kind of hesitant. So 5 tips that I got from Jen. If you want a little bit more of Jenny Cartwright, head over to telesalstraining.com.au. She's got a whole lot of different stuff there. She's running courses. She's got some products, training products she sells. She's got a great blog happening. Telesalstraining.com.au is where it's at. Now, next week's guest, it's all about how to introduce additional revenue streams. I interview a little bloke from a little town in a big country. His name escapes me right now, but that's okay because he's from Rhode Island and he has a martial arts gym. Well, he had one until he sold it 15 months ago because what he was doing online completely replaced the income that he was earning from his bricks and mortar business. Now, the interview, I think what we're going to get from it is how to add additional revenue streams that you might not have considered previously. So stay tuned for that one. That one is out next week. Remember, guys, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and click on the forum button. I'd love to see you inside. Lots of goodness, lots of marketing goodness in there. If you need to get your online marketing sorted like real quick, then head over to netregistry.com.au and they'll give you a big marketing hug and sort you out online. And I wonder what a marketing hug looks like. Don't really know why I said that, but we'll just go with it. We don't do the edit. We don't do editing on the Small Business Big Marketing Show. It's not how we roll. So it's warts and all. So enough from me. May your marketing be the best marketing. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.